Welcome to another edition of the Schmidt Storm. You have questions, I have answers. Is it time to look for a third party, one with common sense, goodwill, centrist policies? Look, I would love to be a member of that party. And I do think that if someone wants to start that party, it would not be a bad thing. But this is a country with two major parties. And the way that the two-party system can be disrupted is with an independent candidacy, which would cost in excess of $1 billion and would be able to navigate the ballot access issues that they would have to deal with in all 50 states. Look, if Mark Cuban ran for president, I think he would get a lot of support. I don't know if he has any interest. I think that there are some exceptional Americans who have the ability to speak English, to communicate in words, to inspire with those words, to paint a picture about a horizon that lies over tomorrow's edge with words. And so if the Democratic Party can't beat MAGA, then they lose the claim to say that an independent candidate is the automatic spoiler in this race. Maybe it's the Democratic candidate that would be the spoiler in this race, given the result in this race. So I think that the majority of Americans were forced into a choice here that the overwhelming majority of them said from the very beginning they didn't want. They did not want the choice they had until 100 days out, which was Biden versus Trump. And the result, is predictable. So in the end, there will not be a third party that is competitive with the first oldest and third oldest political party in the world in 4 years. But could some exceptional American come forward on a platform of decency, common sense, and goodness and capture the public's imagination in a time where every institution has broken trust that you can think to name 100%? 100%. American politics is ripe for disruption. The question is, who are the top candidates to take the lead of the Democratic Party? Look, I think Gavin Newsom thinks he's one of them. He's already called an emergency crisis meeting in California. That seems quite performative to me. I think the governor of California should be reflective about his role in the great national gaslighting, and also the reality that California governance was on the ballot in this election, and the country doesn't want it. Gavin Newsom wants to do something to help. What he ought to do is get his cities under control, because the image of Los Angeles and San Francisco and out of his state and Portland and Seattle, the reality is that a lot of American people look at that and they say, no way, don't want it. And it helped Trump immensely. The opposition to Trump is going to form and emerge out there amongst the governors and civil society groups and amongst outstanding Americans, all of whom retain their First Amendment rights to speak out for the good, to cause good trouble. And we will see in this era of testing who can talk, who can lead, who can do the things that are necessary to build the coalition of optimism, of renewal that is going to be required to take back political power. Question is, what would you have done differently with Kamala Harris's campaign? There's a lot of answers to that question, but the first thing I would have done is walk in, and every single person that was associated with the Biden campaign up to that moment in a strategic capacity would have been gone, done. Second thing is I would have gone and seen the president or his wife, and I would have said, you're going to be very unhappy, but we're running against you as well. We're going to be very critical of Afghanistan, the withdrawal, the inability to communicate, and we're going to chart a clear, dramatic break with the past through a series of speeches that outline the future. And it would have been a gold watch campaign. It would have been unmistakably a change campaign. I would have given a speech that was an approximation of Franklin Roosevelt's 1940 convention speech. And in that speech, he talks about the new monarchs, the new monarchy forming. And I would have applied it like he did to the Elon Musks, right? he didn't apply it to Elon Musk, but the application would have been towards the Elon Musks in the billionaire class today. What great cause did Kamala Harris articulate? What great horizon did she point towards and say, we're going there? Because there we find the shining city on the hill. There was none of it. So the Democratic pollster goes into the field. They come back with a list. The candidate gets the list, and they repeat banalities over and over and over and over again. And this is an era where all of that has been punctured and pierced and obliterated. And though I think that Kamala Harris did the best job that she could do and performed very, very, very well, it was not good enough. And it was not good enough to overcome the giant crater that she started out the campaign in. And so David Plouffe was forced to, apparently, because of the abuse, delete his Twitter account for mentioning that hole. She had to dig out of an immense hole caused by selfishness and cynicism. Everyone in the media and everyone in the Democratic caucus saw the incapacity. One guy, Dean Phillips, tried to do something about it, to send a message, to start a primary process, and he was shouted down. This is the result. Donald Trump will have 4 years. It's a terrible thing, but it's a predictable price. The question is how can we as Americans work to blunt the impact of Trump's presidency over the next 4 years? Get involved, organize. This won't get fixed overnight. We're going to have to retreat. We're not going to be in a position to fight and push back effectively until Donald Trump gets stuck in the mud. The most important thing right now is to face honestly the question of why. Failure to face that question lays the foundation for the next disaster. The Democratic Party lost honesty as an issue on the border and Biden's health. The Democratic Party lost trust on an economy. They called Bidenomics and then shouted down the voters who said, inflation is hurting me. What happened in this election was an abomination, an obscenity. Selfishness ruled the day, and selfishness elected Donald Trump. Better would have defeated Donald Trump. But Kamala Harris couldn't get to better because she couldn't break through the selfishness in 100 days. Simple truth is, the Democratic Party needed to have a primary. It needed to have a choice. Instead, it got taken hostage by the Bidens. And the result is now Trump gets to take the whole country hostage. It was despicable, predictable, and now the tragedy begins. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning, and I invite you to subscribe on our Substack, on our YouTube channel. Follow us. Welcome to the community.